imagine going to Vegas and learning to gamble with someone else's money. After university, I worked for Kraft Foods. I was marketing manager, and I met a guy who was he was the managing director of Martin's Brewery. He was looking for a director to look after all of the sales and marketing. So he offered me the job, and I thought, no, I'm working for this multinational craft food, biggest FMCG company in the world. Why would I go and work for like a small brewery in the UK? He said, well, you come and work for me for 2 years. I'll give you budgetary control, P&L control, hiring, firing, marketing. So I thought I was going there for 2 years to have an apprenticeship, entrepreneurship. And ended up staying there for 7 years.
Having a beer with Fred is really about getting to people's passion and what makes them tick. Having a beer and having honest, frank, clear conversation that inspires our audience is what it's about. Cheers, James.
Fred.
All the way from the UK.
Yeah, great to see you. We landed yesterday after a 10-day tour around the Caribbean in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, but great to meet up with you last night for a beer.
Yeah, so like I was explaining to you, the podcast is Having a Beer with Fred, and a lot of it relates to entrepreneurship. Some of it relates to beer. Some of it relates to other businesses that I've been involved in. And, you and I have had an amazing relationship that started over a beer on a golf course.
Absolutely.
So as I just want to get a sense so the audience can get a sense of who you are and your background, but you've got a different accent. You're not from you're not from Portland, Maine.
Not from North Portland.
Yeah, right. So where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I born in Glasgow a long time ago, a couple of years. So born in Glasgow a few years after Freddie.
Glasgow, Scotland.
Home of the brave and land of the free.
Yeah.
So my father was grandfather and father were greengrocers.
Yeah, which is a store like a food and other things.
Just fruit and veg. So concentrated in fruit and veg. Back 50, 60 years ago, the specialist grocery stores. Yeah. So your butchers, your bakers, your greengrocers. So my father was a greengrocer, and that's where I learned.
What town? Where
in Glasgow.
In Glasgow.
So he started, he was doing the markets from door to door, doing weekend markets. And I guess that's where I learned customer service, buying, selling, the importance of buying things for the right price, getting the right quality of the product, getting the right location. You can have an amazing product, but if you're in the wrong location and people can't see you, you're going to be standing there all day with no custom.
Yeah. I took an entrepreneurship class in college at Arizona State, and one of the things I remember is like 60 to 70%, maybe even a little higher, of entrepreneurs were born and were part of a family business.
Yeah.
Or had a paper route or did something as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so today, you work with me at Shipyard.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if we go backwards, you were working with your dad. Yeah. And did you go to university?
Yeah, working with my dad, learned. And I think, for me, the number one quality for an entrepreneur is initiative. You show that initiative, you take a chance, you spot an opportunity, you spot a gap in the market or a niche to go after, and you go all in.
What was your first business that you started with either others or on your own?
Yeah, so when I was fortunate, myself and my wife have been together since high school for 40 years. Our oldest son is 37 years old.
Yeah.
And
in America, we call it a shotgun wedding, just so you know.
Yeah, mine was more of a pistol wedding. We didn't make it all the way to a shotgun. But through college, I went to university. I studied economics and marketing.
Yeah. What college you go?
4 years, Strathclyde in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So when you're there in college, and with a young family, you've got to pay your rent, you've got to pay groceries, you've got to have a few beers at the weekend.
Yeah.
So every Wednesday, I did the fruit markets, and then on a Saturday, I would do sort of different markets. And my thing was not to have variety, it was to be a specialist.
Yeah.
So I would go to the markets at 4:00 in the morning, and I would wait. I would walk around, and I would see what perhaps some people had too much of excess stock, whether it's tomatoes, melons, strawberries, cabbages, cauliflower, it didn't matter. I would wait till the end of the day, because come 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, if they hadn't sold all of that produce, it went in a bin. So I never paid more than £1, $1 for a box of anything.
Yeah.
And I would buy 200 boxes of it. I would fill the van and I would take it to the market for 9 o'clock. So I would stand there. It didn't matter what I sold, and I would just work one product the whole day
And sell it out.
sell it out.
And like a 1,000% margin, or?
Yeah. So you would have a box with 24 boxes of strawberries. So they would be costing like 5 cents, and you would sell them for $1 a box.
So let's fast forward to your first brewery that you started.
Yeah, so after university, I worked for Kraft Foods. So I was in the chocolate side. At the time, Kraft had 3 divisions: cheese, chocolate, and coffee. So I had Toblerone, chocolate orange. I was marketing manager. And I mean, it's bizarre, that there's a combination of luck, being in the right place at the right time, but also the bravery to make that decision. I met a guy who was he was the managing director of Marston's Brewery.
Marston's, yeah.
Yeah, at the time they were independent in '99, so 30 years ago. And they were very ambitious. They were looking to expand their sales, go international, go into the off-premise, buy more pubs. And he was looking for a director to look after all of the sales and marketing. So he offered me the job, and I thought, no, I'm working for this multinational craft food, biggest FMCG company in the world. Why would I go and work for like a small brewery in the UK? So he said to me, you're a young guy, you're in your 20s. What do you want to do when you grow up? I said, well, I'm gaining experience to then start up my own business. He said, well, you come and work for me for 2 years. I'll give you budgetary control, P&L control, hiring, firing, marketing, product development.
Wow.
Imagine going to Vegas and learning to gamble with someone else's money.
Right.
So he got me all in. So I thought I was going there for 2 years to have an apprenticeship in entrepreneurship, and ended up staying there for 7 years, went really well. We were very successful. And during that time, an opportunity came along with a brewery that we were working with called Witchwood Brewery.
Witchwood Brewery, right?
So Witchwood Brewery were a startup. They've been going for 5 or 6 years. So I saw an opportunity. I remortgaged my house, bought 20% of the company, and went all in. So
you bet the house, you bet the farm.
I bet the farm, farm, the kids, the chickens,
right?
Everything. So
and then you sold that to Marston's, right?
Well, not straight away. So I left Marston's. Yeah. We worked up. We built that up, because in the UK you're allowed to. It's called vertical integration. So you have a brewery. You can have your own distributorship, and you can own your own bar.
Right, which is a big difference we talk about in other videos about America versus the UK. In the UK, you can own all of it.
Yeah, you own the supply chain.
Yeah, and so the US, you can't because of the 3-tier system.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I guess both systems have their benefits.
Right.
But for us, when you're building a beer brand, oftentimes it's like the Sea Dog. When you come to a Sea Dog, you come there because obviously amazing beer, great hospitality. But when you've then had a great experience in a Sea Dog bar, when you say Sea Dog in Publix or Walmart or Trader Joe's, you'll remember the experience you had in the bar. So you're more likely to pick up a 6-pack of beer.
Right.
Because it's the experience.
So with Witchwood, you had the ability to do all that. How quickly did you sell it to Marston's?
So we built up the bars, we built up the brewery, and it became always pretty quickly that there was more potential to build the beer brand than there was to scale the pubs.
Yeah.
Scaling the pubs is capital intensive. You need a lot of money.
Yeah.
You need specialist people to run it. I'm not a bar guy. I'm more of a brands guy. You need a lot of capital. You need a lot of backing. And you need a lot of staff. So that the profit margins of running the bars were declining, and there was more pressure. So we sold the bars to really double down to focus on building the brand. So our number one brand, the focus brand, was Hobgoblin.
Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
That's a fun brand, fun name.
Amazing. And Hobgoblin actually stands for King of the Goblins.
Oh, no kidding.
And the Witchwood Brewery from the Witchwood Forest in medieval Oxfordshire.
Right.
So all of the brands we did, Fiddler's Elbow and Black Witch and Goliath, these were all mythical characters from the Witchwood Forest.
Right.
So Ian Rogers, who started the business, is a legend. Still,
You've seen any hobgoblins before?
it depends how many.
Made any hobgoblins before?
Yeah, well, I'll plead the fifth on that.
So you sold to Marston's through creating, which I know the Hobgoblin brand for being over in the UK, and
It became as big as Newcastle Brown and Speckled Hen. So Marston's, who also went on an acquisition spree, they bought 5 or 6 different breweries: Ringwood, Jennings.
Ringwood is where Peter Austin, the grandfather of craft brewing in the world, nobody gives him that kind of credit, but he was one of the first craft brewers. In fact, Jim Cook bought one of the Peter Austin systems when he was building Sam Adams.
Yeah.
And he jokingly mentioned that he finally figured out he needed to go another way. But anyways, he a great guy, Jim. And but they Marston's basically bought Ringwood, but before that, Pete Austin grew it, and then David Walsh owned it.
That's right.
And then David and Alan Pugsley actually started under Peter Austin the same week.
Yeah.
So they started together, and Alan came to America and partnered with Shipyard and me, created Shipyard.
Yeah.
And David went on to grow Ringwood and selling it to Marston's.
Yep.
And then we actually were able to brew Ringwood Old Thumper on November 3rd, 1984.
Wow.
We did 1994, not 84. Did a simultap. We had 33 bars in an AT&T conference call because they didn't have cell phones back then. It's 1994.
On a can.
We did a simultap in which David Walsh was over the UK, and he was like, it was 8 o'clock here, so it was in the middle of the morning, or like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
He was on the call. From Connecticut to Maine, we had bars and parties going everywhere. And Alan Pugsley and I were in Federal Jacks, and Bruce Forsley was somewhere else. So long story short, we had this silent, and we did very well with Old Thumper for a number of years.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Right. So the funny story was they bought.
So the year after buying Ringwood, Marston's then bought Witchwood. So I came along as part of that deal. I was the
what year was that?
So that was in 2008.
Okay. So that was after Ringwood.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find out when Marston's Brewing Company, it was a 600-year-old brewery.
Oh, yeah.
Breweries, like separate. When they bought Ringwood, which, smaller brewery, I was trying to find out who we had to deal with because we had a license to brew Old Thumper in the U.S. yet. So I would call every once in a while, and I never heard anything for about a year. And I'm in Orlando, and I get a call from the office. I think it was Heather Douglas calls me, and this says there's an Englishman who wants to talk to you. So we connected, and you said, "Hey, do you want to play golf tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I can make it to England tomorrow." He says, No, I'm at Reunion just down the street. I think it was probably in April or whatever. I said, "Well, I'm not a great golfer. Bruce Forsley, my cousin's a good golfer, but I can have some fun." So we did, and you graciously got me golf clubs, and we filled a cooler full of beer.
I did, yeah. I don't. Thankfully, there was no one filming golf that day. I think it started well, but the quality deteriorated in line with the beer consumption.
Yeah, but by the end of it, you said, "No problem on Ringwood. You've got we'll extend the license." But you said, "Would you be interested in brewing Shipyard with us and do a joint venture in the UK?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it." And I said, "Yes." For like 2 seconds, maybe 3. I've never thought about it.
Please, how could you drive a hard bargain? You've been on a negotiation skills course.
Yeah, no, it was a hard bargain, but I quickly became that I trusted you as a person.
Yeah,
is Marston's this big company, and I always like to say, and you don't learn this until you actually experience it, but most companies are made up of pockets of good people.
Yeah.
or, and companies can do things that, people like have this feeling of the big bad company, but a lot of times there's a lot of good people that are in pockets of companies and run divisions, or especially bigger companies. But it was nice to meet you, and I met your family.
Yep.
We're on the golf course, and there was the whole family at the pool.
Absolutely.
And so quickly we became friends. And that was what year, you think?
2010.
2010,
yeah.
14, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, we're now brewing with you in Carlsberg, and they got involved in Ringwood. And I've met hundreds and hundreds.
I think, just to sort of pause for a second, 'cause I think you made a really, really good point, both about entrepreneurship, but also about sort of corporate structure.
Yeah.
And the reality is that when you're a small business, you're agile, you're fleet of foot, the decision making from you to from the CEO or founder down to the guy on the shop floor is instant. You go quickly. They can normally speak to you and you know what's happening.
Right.
You visit all your premises. Anyone in your company can pick up the phone and ask a question. As the company gets bigger, there's layers of compliance, and that compliance is there probably more so to stop a bad decision than to encourage a good decision.
Right.
So once you're trying to get through the layers of compliance, but you're right, within every organization, small, medium or large, there are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And in my experience, having worked in a startup and having worked in, the largest FMCG company in the world, you have individuals there, and more companies are encouraging people to show initiative, to take responsibility, to work in micro teams rather than big departments.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, the bigger the department, the more inefficient they become.
Right.
Because there's layers of process and administration. So being you can be an entrepreneur in a bigger organization. Being an entrepreneur just doesn't mean you work for yourself or you work in a small division.
Right.
Bigger companies, Procter & Gamble's and Google and all these companies, they want people to show innovation, get new product development, and bring change to the organization.
Yeah, no question. So they say that. They don't always mean it, right? Like
compliance.
I've seen the good and bad of it. I've seen, when times people, biggest document they had was their resume, ready to figure out how to leave because of corporate, redundancy, you call it over there. But luckily, a lot of people haven't seen that in the U.S. recently. But I am fortunate that it's a family-run business. We have, each of the locations. We're here in Treasure Island, Florida, and we've been in business here for close to 9 years. And the people here, the GM, Charlie Breakiron, and the team have created like this family experience. You've seen it. Yeah. Been to our other locations.
Comes from the top, Fred. You set the culture for the company.
But you do have times where it's tricky, it's difficult. So I meet you in the UK.
Yeah.
Basically 15 years ago, close to 15, maybe 14, but right around this time of year. And the first concept, we did an independent sale.
We did. We didn't know how Shipyard would have gone. So we launched it. You came over. You worked with Richard Westwood, Simon Yates, brewers. We developed, the Shipyard beer. Because in the UK, we tend to drink a little less strong. So their typical strength will be between 4%, 4.5%. Perhaps not as high in alcohol and high in hops. So you worked with the brew team. We developed an independent sale. We launched it the 4th of July.
That's the big thing Americans wouldn't understand, is that the tax that people pay, the brewers pay in the UK and the bars pay, is increased based on alcohol content.
0.1, it goes up. Yeah. And then as soon as you get to 7%, it's up by 50%.
Right, 50% tax to the consumer through the cost of the beer.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, right?
But when we tried the beer as independent sale, launched it for the 4th of July, and
Alan Pugsley, my partner, was English, would always work on 4th of July just to make it.
Boy, he loved it. I've saw him with his stars and stripes.
Yeah.
And it was a huge success. The bars loved it. They couldn't believe that it was only available for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It was a seasonal. We got so many positive comments from consumers.
Right.
It's beating Marston's own 1,800 pubs.
1,800.
So remember I was telling you earlier on at Witchwood, we'd 30 bars. we were small. We were a microbrewery. Marston's were, one of the largest vertical integrated. 7 breweries, 12 logistics depots, 100 wagons, 1,800 pubs.
Right.
This is a big, big, big organization.
Yeah.
So when we launch a product and it goes into the bars and we get social media and all of the staff get behind it, it really gets a lot of consumers sampling it.
Excited about it. Yeah.
So it was, in your career, you get few brands that do that. Where you get such a positive response from consumers, you're onto something.
Yeah.
So obviously we couldn't sell Independence Ale all year round, but we knew the beer was amazing.
We would touch a point.
Yeah. So you and I had...
I heard England still wants us back. They want to take up... They're going to pull it.
Well, I don't know if will it be called the Gulf of England?
It'll be fun.
We're not going to be the 53rd states.
Yeah. Listen, we all have fun, right? That's the fun thing about the beer business. We make
you can't have fun drinking beer.
All right. So cheers, my friend. So really fast forward. We were in the UK in November. I brought over Billy Fairweather and Jimmy Clark.
Yeah.
And we did a Dirty Water TV segment from England.
Yeah.
And I had such an amazing, fun time in Liverpool. We went to,
the Cavern Club.
The Cavern Club was bar. It was right up there in one of the top 10 bar experiences my entire life. I had a lot of bar experience, but that was the feeling and being there with,
the
music,
the heritage. You walked around, there are, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, they're writing their names on the wall. You've stood on the same stage that Paul and Ringo and John were all performing.
Earlier that day, we're at Infield. We're in the stadium. We're walking around. We're serving.
What can buy experience and Shipyard's there.
Yeah,
you've
served there. Big spot and that relationship with you. I've probably been to England now. I'm guessing 12 to.
Yeah, most years. Times, Baltic conferences.
Yes. Yeah.
You met Wetherspoons. Yeah. You met Sir Tim Martin.
So Wetherspoons, explain Wetherspoons to our viewers.
So
they may not know.
Wetherspoons is just an amazing pub retailer. When Sir Tim Martin started it all those years ago. And
he's still running it.
He's still running it. He's an amazing diamond guy. He's an entrepreneur. And I remember one year...
That's a true entrepreneurial story.
Well, I remember 15 years ago getting in a cab.
Yeah.
I got off the train station. I was in a town going to a meeting. And you get talking to cab drivers. And I was telling the cab driver I was in town. I worked in the beer industry and I was here for a meeting. And the guy... completely impromptu. 5 years ago, I had a guy in the back of my cab. He said it was a real strange experience. He said he was 6'7", long blonde hair. He had his notepad under his arm and sort of knocked on the window when I was waiting in line. He says, "I'd like to hire you for the day." So I looked at him and said, "Why?" He says, "I'm looking at opening some bars in this area. And nobody knows the best bars like a cab driver.
Right.
I want to hire you for the day and I want you to take me around the town, show me where the students drink, show me where people drink, show me the best bars, tell me why they're the best bar, what bar's busy at night time, what bar's busy for lunch, where do the different clientele go." So this was Tim Martin leading from the front, how he picked his bars. He walked to the town, each town, and he walked round. Today, he's got over 900
pubs. And there's Shipyard in every one of them, which is exciting. Cheers to that.
And how does that make you feel, Fred?
It makes me feel great.
You're standing in a Wetherspoons, drinking a pint of Shipyard, or in Anfield, or in a concert hall.
Well, it's nice when you meet the people, and they're really like the culture of the pub. And you sit there, and we were, we're in the theater district in London, and we're in the back there, and we met that couple that they let us share the table with them because the place was so busy.
Yeah.
And they end up telling us their whole story.
Yeah.
Life. And one was from Australia, and one was from the boyfriend was from England, and I told them about Dave Phillips, who was. Next thing you know, you're connecting. Well, if we ever come to Portland, Maine, we're going to look you up. And every once in a while on social media, they'll say,
"It does that." It connects people.
Yeah, no, it does. And that's what I've been saying. Like, a lot of people want to basically say, oh, alcohol's bad. It causes this, it causes that, it can cause whatever. And they want to put warnings on everything. And there's certain people would just as soon go back to prohibition. But I think the fact that a degree of social
moderation.
Yeah, socialize. That's what having a beer with Fred's about.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun. They're going to talk. We're going to, see what happens. And, at the end of the day, a lot of people will, tell stories they wouldn't. I had Billy Fairweather here from Dirty Water TV, and he and I, we went for over an hour, and the stories that he would come up with, that come back. I mean, I'm sure
they all start with a beer.
Yeah, the same thing with you, right? Yeah, so.
Well, now we're talking about stories.
No,
it might be a bit X-rated, it might be R-rated, but
we can go. What's this cable? We don't. That cable is streaming, and that no sense for us.
The best story must be the Oktoberfest story.
Oh my God!
We're 5 years into really
5 years, 6 years.
10 years ago.
Was it 10 years ago? So I had been going. You're doing business, and I ended up on a red eye to Munich. To see you because you invited me. I was against
Prince Ludwig von Bayern.
Yes, this is a great story. And I land, and all of a sudden my left toe is like pounding. Oh my God! So I had Cole Haan shoes. My buddy George Denny, one of my mentors, one of who'd recently just passed away, but he would always look at my feet. If I didn't have Cole Haans on, I'd get in trouble. But anyways, by the time I got to the hotel, I get there and I'm in a taxi. I walk in, you come running out in lederhosen,
full lederhosen,
outfit. Oh my God! So now, what time is it in the day?
It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had a 5 o'clock appointment. For dinner with Prince Ludwig von Bayern in his castle. It was an 8-course beer and food banquet.
Right.
Now, the Prince is one of the most famous men in all, not just Munich, but in Germany. His great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson was the original Prince.
What an
amazing where the Oktoberfest started.
And the Disney castle, I guess Walt Disney knocked off the look of that castle.
So, Nymphenburg Castle, which was his family's castle. When Walt Disney saw it, he made a replica for Disney World.
They were still upset about that. They don't get any royalties.
Yeah, but the Germans hold grudges for a long time.
Generations.
Don't upset the Germans.
So they had a jousting.
Yeah, we're having dinner with the prince. We're on the table. They were jousting. They were medieval sword fighting. It was unbelievable.
What was so cool is the caves that would go way down when they used to pull the ice out of the lake. And the thing about in Germany, they can sell within a certain radius only their beer. So they sold like 1 million barrels a year. And
known of 3 styles. Remember Helles, which is the golden one, Dunkel, which is the dark one, and wheat beer. So you don't get double IPAs and fruit beers. You get Helles, Dunkel, or wheat beer.
Well, and we went from there. We spent the whole night there. And then we left the Prince and went downtown Munich.
But the Oktoberfest, we went down, this was the night before the Oktoberfest.
Yes.
Because that night we went down into town, we had a few beers.
I remember you leading a charge we had to hit, and they kept doing the thing with the steins where you had to hold them, and then who lost. But the crazy thing was at 4 o'clock in the morning, we're going home. I haven't slept, right? A red eye forever here. And now it's 4 o'clock in the morning the next day. And, we're going home. Everybody's like, we're going to McDonald's. I said, I don't go to McDonald's in America. I'm going to go to McDonald's in Germany. So we load up on, I don't know, I think I'm at 5 o'clock in the morning. We finally end up in bed. And next thing you know, I'm hearing, we got to go. What are you talking about? And we got to go for it. I didn't realize. So it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Next thing you know, you're dragging me out of my room. I'm in the back of this van with all our buddies from the guys from Heineken.
12 always, all that.
So we're
breweries,
at this point, my gout is just killing me. I can't get any medicine over there because I'm over in Germany. And we're walking, and I see this huge castle, right? It was like a castle. It was like, it was sprawling, and all these people are walking with us. And it was awful early for everybody this excited to a brewery tour. And I'm thinking, this has got to be another brewery, right? So we get there, and I started seeing everybody queuing, And I'm like, this can't be this. And I'm thinking, like, what is this? So I say to the guy, what is this? He says, oh, it's the pewter. It's the pewter museum. And the prince says he wanted you to definitely come and see it.
Yeah.
As his guest and da-da-da-da. And I said, are you fucking kidding me? You got me out of bed for this? And so I go to the front to the tour guy. You're like, no, we got to do this.
Yeah.
I said, I'm pulling rank here. This is not happening. I go to the front. I said, listen, we can't do it. I'm not doing this. So, no, you need to. The prince way. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the prince we loved his pewter. We'll look at it, you'll tell us what the top 3 things we're going to see are. We'll tell him it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because we were going to see him that night.
Yeah.
I said, but we need to get to a pub and we need to start drinking or I'm going to pass out. Yeah. So he's like, no. I said, no. So all 12 of us back as a
to the beer garden.
It was one of his, right?
Yeah. So his beer garden, it holds 10,000 people.
Yeah.
In the street, they've got, the big long tables. Everyone sits. And it's back to the point you said about beer being hospitable, getting people together.
When we show up there's nobody there. There's racks of steins and we knock on the door.
Yeah.
The guy
let us in.
There was 2 or 3 beautiful,
also
he has older women, right? But, the guy talked to
we said we're with the prince, we're meeting him there earlier. You just mention the prince's name and you'll get shit done.
Yeah.
So this was about 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Didn't open till 11. Let us in. We're in a big long table and it's like a self-service cafeteria.
Yeah.
You get your Stein glass and Stein's a liter, 2 pints, trying to carry them.
Yeah.
You go along.
Then we got some help though. That girl was
in. Yeah. Oh, they can hold 6 in each hand.
Amazing.
It's a skill. So what they do, you fill your glass.
Yeah.
You then get a tray of food and you sit down. You don't pay anything. All you do, the waitress comes round with a pen and she just keeps marking the number of steins. So at the end of the day, your bar tab, she just rips off the tablecloth.
Yeah.
And depending on how many strokes you've got there,
the beers.
You pay.
the high tech.
Yeah.
But then we got a huge tray of different meats and cheeses, and
you couldn't be a vegetarian.
Oh my God, we didn't. I don't think we left it like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then we go and get ready.
5 o'clock. Yeah. So the Oktoberfest is 2 sittings, 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So the prince was meeting us. Now, bearing in
mind, the same table for
hundreds of years. So the Oktoberfest has been going on for 600 years. So everyone knows the prince, and when the prince...
You probably still have pictures.
Yeah, if
I got a few of you.
Got evidence. It's evidence they're locked under. They're under lock and key, Fred.
So smart.
But as we're walking in for your beer to be served at the Oktoberfest, and the Oktoberfest is the annual celebration of the wedding beer for the prince's descendant.
Yeah.
And the only beers that you can sell in the Oktoberfest are from brewed in the old town within the old Munich walls.
And there's like only 5 or 6 of those.
5 or 6 breweries there.
And they each have their own tent.
Tent. And when we say a tent, they hold 25,000
football fields. Yeah.
Oompa bands, dancing, etc. Yeah. So obviously the band stands up, they're playing the music, the prince is walking in, entourage.
Yeah.
So as the prince is walking in, you and I are walking behind him. So everyone's doffing the head and sort of courtesying to the prince.
Yeah.
And he took us up onto the special. What an experience.
Oh my God.
It was jousting in his castle.
Yeah.
To walk into the prince's tent in the Oktoberfest.
Yeah, he is an amazing guy. What, the 8th or 9th generation?
Oh, longer than that.
Really good at that. Yeah.
And this culture that you're talking about is renowned the world over.
Yeah.
One place going for over $1,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Which is fun, but it kind of reminded me outside of a country fair.
Yeah.
And inside it was like something I never experienced.
Yeah.
We were there for like 6 or 7 hours.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
I don't know, close to midnight, and then next thing you know, we go out, hit a few bars,
clubs, and beautiful city.
Yeah, and then we end up at McDonald's again at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, what are you going?
No. I think I gained 30 pounds on the trip. It was a lot of fun, and then...
we flew home, and then you spent a week touring Bavaria.
Yeah, I went up to Hamburg, where they have the burnt beer.
Yeah.
And... Right. There weren't many Americans or English-speaking people.
No.
So I got a cab driver that spoke a little bit of English.
Yeah.
He took me around, right? and he took me into these pubs, and I would try to talk to Germans, and they knew a little English, but not a lot actually. But I
It's
got
the universal language.
oh my God, beer is, and had such a great time. Then I met a buddy of mine, Walter Karan, and his family up in. We went up to Amsterdam and The Hague, and and I had never really traveled by train at that level.
Yeah.
It was spectacular. And then I came back down. There was something else going on at a conference, I think, and
You came and at the Belfry, you came and presented.
Belfry, yeah.
And that's what we were touched on early on in our chat. But, you are Shipyard, you set the tone, you're the figurehead of the company.
Yeah.
You've got an amazing leadership team.
Yeah.
You all sort of look after their areas and you give them responsibility. They come to you not for approval, but just for checking in and make sure everything's okay. But, even, Marston's have got 250 sales guys. And when you stood on, and it's really important that they see you as the face of the brand. Part of it's not just a beer that we sell. It comes from a family. There's a man who puts his heart and soul and passion, blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. So when you stood on that stage and you asked everyone to stand up and give themselves a cheer, that
was a moment.
They still talk about it.
There was a moment. Yeah. And then we had fun the rest. We worked hard that day. But then you guys celebrated that night.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. We did another one at the soccer or football. You guys call it football. Yeah. We call it a soccer venue that you guys sponsored. And that was a great one. And then this last time I was over, we did a meeting at the cricket.
Yeah,
which I have no idea of cricket.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a bit like baseball, though it can go on for 5 days and still not get a result.
It's a great drinking.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a theme going on there, right?
Yeah. Well, yesterday I think was the first day of spring in America here, and it probably is over in the UK. And I saw my summer ale.
Yeah.
So we're brewing ready for summer beer right now.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of fun doing that, and we're getting ready for summer up in Maine and New England.
Yeah.
You are as well, right? You'll have summer.
Yeah, well, we start now, but for us, Marston's, having stayed with Marston's, and so Shipyard's last year was its 10th so we had a couple of years with Independence Ale, but last year was the 10th anniversary, 2014, when we launched American Pale Ale.
Yep.
And it's gone from a standing start to being the number one American draft beer in the UK. It's huge.
Yeah.
So our dollar sales have just exceeded $40 million.
$40 million.
$40 million. It's huge. It's popular, and wherever I go in,
I have somebody in the UK.
Somebody
in the UK. Well, in a lot of it, and I would give you a lot of credit, and obviously the relationships you have within Marston's and Carlsberg, and also your mindset on branding and working with people, giving, there are a number of people that put a lot of energy from within the company that are some will be leaving, some will be staying, that have been part of the journey with us.
Every brand, you say, the successful brand has many fathers.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, a brand, a brand endures. A brand can go on through generations.
My hope is that long after, I hope to live a long time. With modern medicine, maybe we'll get up there in the hundreds. Who knows? We don't by a drinking. Didn't drink a good beer. But you go to the Guinness Brewery, you go to Jameson's distillery, and you go to our tasting room, and the evolution in 33 years to today is pretty dramatic. In America, 33-year-old breweries, an old brewery.
Wow.
In the UK, that's a young brewery.
Yeah, they've just started.
And they call me the old guy. I'm sitting in a room one time with Richard Pfeffer and we were at a brewers conference in Maine. And these guys are up there, and they start talking about the older guys, and thank you for all they did. And almost like they're asking us to exit door right, And I'm looking around thinking, who's the old guy? And when I look at Eddie, and Eddie's looking at me, and he helped me start because he had he still has Gritty McDuff's with Richard Pfeffer, and he's looking at me, and we both look at each other. They're fucking talking about us. So, anyways, it's okay. I don't mind that.
In the UK, Shipyard is a young, dynamic craft brewer. And I go into Witherspoons or other bars, and I see people drinking it. As young guys, they'll be there, and I've been fortunate to have met you and played
I need another beer. I need another export.
Right? To have played a small part in Shipyard success, and as I said, Shipyard in the UK has had many successful fathers, but I get a similar sense of satisfaction. Hobgoblin has been like my child.
Your baby.
And gone, I've been fortunate in my life to have some brands that it's more than a job. It feels as though like you put your heart, soul, passion, they're connected to you, and those brands live forever. So when you see someone having a pint of Shipyard or a beer that you've been involved in, there's no bet you want to go up and give them a hug and buy them a beer.
I know exactly. You see somebody wearing a shirt, where'd you get it? That type of thing. So I'll do this. Oops. Hey. It's a crime. That's good export beer. And I feel that way about export.
That year we made.
Yeah. And so I look at what we've accomplished, and I feel like there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
So explain today where James Coyle is in his life.
Where is he? Well, before that, I think just to sort of finish the sort of Shipyard journey, Fred, because there was an important
journey never ends.
Change, because Marston's having done an amazing job for 10 years building Shipyard.
Yeah.
They've taken it from zero. Today's Shipyard will be in 3,000 bars, it'll be in 3,000 stores. You can go into any bar, you can speak to people.
Right.
All heard of Shipyard.
Right.
You drink Shipyard, they've got a Shipyard story.
Yeah.
But Carlsberg bought Marston's recently.
Yep.
And Carlsberg
they partnered. I thought there was a partner.
They bought them from before. Yeah, so they own 100%.
It's called Carlsberg Marston's.
Yeah.
Okay. And they own 100% now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they own 100%. And Carlsberg are one of the most, I think they share the same values, and I think that's why.
Big brewery, but they're still a family.
Still family. They've still got the Carlsberg Foundation. They give, hundreds of millions of dollars a year back into charities and trusts. They protect the values. They protect the communities that they operate in. And you've met Paul Davis, the CEO.
Yep.
You've met them.
We had a great time together. What town was that in? We were
in Birmingham.
Yeah, and it was at an old hospital? They turned into a school?
Yeah, old hospital. Yeah, and we'd been to Edgbaston, but Paul is,
amazing, dynamic.
When
he told me the story about the Ukraine and Carlsberg's brewery, and I had 3 breweries.
Yeah,
and that was another story. We were going to be served in 1,200 bars and 12,000.
Yeah. So
in Russia.
Yeah,
and the Ukraine,
because Carlsberg have a 40% market share in Russia. So they have a beer called Baltica. So one of Carlsberg's biggest market was.
Maybe they can negotiate getting that back. They got it stolen from them.
Yeah.
They still I wonder if everybody's still in jail. They arrested.
Yeah, no, I think they've reached an agreement to sell it now.
Okay. So everybody's okay. They'll let the people out of jail, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe with this ceasefire.
Hopefully, if
what happened?
Mr. Trump can weave his magic with Mr. Putin.
Well, let's hope with everything. So when you introduce yourself, what's your title?
So I'm just James. I'm not anything grand. I'm just
Sharon's husband.
Yeah, Sharon's husband. Yeah,
Sharon Cole's husband.
Yeah,
she's like over there.
She's the boss.
So we'll have to interview her next. But get your so. So and then you have 3 beautiful children and a new granddaughter.
And a granddaughter, Isla, who's the apple of her eye.
Yep.
So she's 10 months old and she's beautiful.
And your son is dynamic.
Jonathan, he works for JCB, and Jordan works for Campari. Caitlin works for a marketing company.
So what's the name of that marketing company?
It's called Love Creative. So they work with Adidas, with Häagen-Dazs. They work with some global brands.
Yeah.
So Caitlin said she's the copyright.
And you live in the Midlands now?
We live in the middle of the UK. So I've having had, a wonderful, blessed career in business. I've been CEOs, I've been board directors, I've been non-executive directors. I've had my own business. I've worked for large companies, startup companies. I've moved into
You're not retired. You're still.
No, No, I've moved into a stage of my life which was something I always wanted to do, and I've wanted to be a business mentor, a business grandfather, for want of a better word. So I'm currently working across 5 or 6 different businesses where I've taken a 5% stake.
Yeah.
I'm either the chairman or on the board. I'm a mentor to the management. I help them with fundraising, with cash flow, with marketing, with route to market, with strategic development. And for me, it's like being, having just become a grandfather, a physical grandfather.
Right.
I get to spend the best time with business. We talk about strategy, we talk about marketing, we do all of the good, sexy, fun stuff.
Right.
But the hard stuff of HR, raising cash, P&L, management accounts, management look after that.
Yep.
So being able to share my experiences and give a bit of advice with the next generation of entrepreneurs coming through. I've given talks at universities. I've mentored some young guys who are in their 20s at the start of their career. For me, and you do it every day with I saw you do it with your employees. Ben, your nephew, watching his development at Kenny Bunk is inspirational. And I could pick lots of examples throughout your organization. And
we're very fortunate to be able to have survived long enough, not just, the last few years.
And evolve.
And keep evolving, right? You have to. If you don't, you get it. And that's the business stories we talk about, right? Like nobody understands until they have to make a payroll or they have to borrow money or they've lost a business and they've had to start over. This poem, If by Rudyard Kipling, my dad gave it to me when I was, I think, in 5th or 6th grade. And there are a lot of lines in there. If you can, basically treat triumph and disaster, treat those two imposters just the same. Their successes, your failures. But at the end of the day, beer is fun. Yeah, we want to keep it fun. Yeah, and that's what's interesting in the places. But you have seen you've had a very serious side when you're managing and trying to look at logistics and other things. And people think beer is simple, right? It's easy. You want it, like they think the restaurant business is simple. Well, it just isn't, right? It's not. And we've been very fortunate in our careers to keep going and not end up having to go do something we didn't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself working. I get paid to drink beer and sit in bars and restaurants.
Things are moving.
There isn't a better job in life. But you may well have heard this, Fred, but certainly in the UK where there's a growth in people who don't drink alcohol. The younger generation coming through.
Alternative beverages.
That's good. Functional beverages, CBD, magic mushrooms, high in proteins, etc. And it's fantastic. The younger generation have more access to information.
Not just the younger generation, too. Other
older guys who absolutely who are moderating on alcohol consumption. But I think for me that there's an important, very for communities and people's mental health. Since COVID, a lot of people are spending time at home. They spend time on phones. They're working from home. Yeah. Their life, rather than going to an office place or sitting on a screen, a bar or a restaurant is the best environment to meet someone. Right. You can come to Sea Dog. You can sit here. Yeah. I mean, amazing bar on the harbour. Yeah. You can walk in a stranger. Right. And leave with friends.
Right.
You sit down there. The barman will speak to you. Yeah. You can strike up a conversation. You can get that sat at home.
Right.
So I would encourage people, whether you don't drink, you do drink, you're changing your habits, still support the bars and restaurants,
right.
Particularly the independent bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
They are family businesses. They need your custom, and give it a try.
Yeah.
Go in, order something different, ask the barman for a recommendation, speak to a stranger. Your life will be enriched for it.
Yeah, these kids, a lot of times, everybody's wearing the earplugs, and they're all doing like they're doing DoorDash and never get out of the house, and I couldn't agree more. Well, we've been very fortunate to spend some time together, and we'll spend some more.
Yeah, likewise.
Love you more, my friend.